Good evening, everybody. This is Horse Center with your host, Rich. That's me. Who? And then we have the sensational, always charismatic Swiss Army Sean. Of course, tonight we're joined by superstar jockey agent Jose Santos Jr., who's changing the game. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Oh, doing fantastic. Thank you. Now, there's something about your life that really fascinates me in some respect when I go back and rewind and was getting prepped for this show. Your dad, your grandparents, you come from a horse racing family, but your father, I think about 2003, rode Funny Cide, won the Kentucky Derby, won the Preakness. So you're one of 23 families whose father, grandfather, somebody had a horse going into the potentially winning the Triple Crown. And then obviously we know what happened in the Belmont. He didn't manage to win, finished third in a really sloppy, ugly day. And the NBC camera, I don't know if you've seen it, but panned over to you and your mother. She gave you a nice embrace.
A couple times.
Yes, a beautiful lady, beautiful hat, just beautiful moment between a mom and a son. But being in that unique situation where 99.99% of the population will never be in. You won the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, that's got to be the highest of highs. And then to see your dad. Now, I don't know about you, but most boys see their dad like a titan, right? He's almost a god, right? And you could see the emotion in your face. Take us through that whole thing so that we can kind of, to the best of our ability, put ourselves in your shoes.
Yeah, well, the whole experience leading up to it was kind of surreal because, he had that thing get released in the Miami Herald where they had suspected they cheated to win the Derby. So, it was kind of a super emotional time for my family that whole 5 weeks because, he wins the Derby. Then a week later, all that comes out and, at the time. So everyone in my school, it was, huge news just in my region, not just outside of, in the United States, but massive in my region just because it was like front page paper stuff of, where I was living at the time. So we actually had to get pulled out of school because of all the stuff that was going on in school, me and all my sisters. And, to have him win the Preakness after that, it was extremely vindicating because, he had to win that race to kind of, have his name cleared of the situation. Even though he was cleared, he had to win that race or there would always be that speculation, So then going into the Belmont, super exciting. Of course, you want to see your father win the Triple Crown. It was just really exciting times. And, unfortunately lost, but Funny Cide went on to have a really awesome career. And my dad had, many great years after that as well. But like you said, just emotional. I always joke around, it was the worst thing that ever happened in my life was him losing the Belmont at that time. Things have changed since then. But at that time, that was like the world was falling apart. But it was a really fun experience.
And, I can imagine. Good time. So now you're a jockey's agent, right? So yeah. Do you ever, in the aftermath of a race, watch a jockey's ride and then come back to him and maybe give him a little bit of constructive criticism and say, maybe if you had done this, maybe if you had done that, things would have been differently?
Yeah, if I'm asked to, there's some riders I represent who they want that input from me and there's some who they don't. And, I kind of know that situation. And if I'm asked, then, I'll absolutely give my input of what I thought, might have been the difference. Or I might tell them, I didn't think you did anything wrong. Just got beat by who was a better horse today. So.
And speaking of better horses, I saw recently you had mentioned that one of the things you do, and perhaps better than most, especially at your young age, is you have to handicap the races, which I figured most jockey agents do, and you probably do a very good job of that. Obviously, because a lot of your riders do exceptionally well. But the other thing that you mentioned that you had to do is you had to handicap what the office was going to do. So take the horse player who's, betting on races or the average fan through what you mean by that.
Well, you have a select, let's say, 25 possible races that are given to us that are going to happen on a race card. And of those 25, for instance, 9 of those races will go. So based off what's happened in the meet or the horses that are there, or, what races just ran recently, if a race is carded for, let's say, that Friday, and then it's drawn again for the next Friday, most likely it's not going to go because all those horses are just running, so races like that, I won't pay attention to, or on a big day, certain racing secretaries, and you kind of learn, a racing secretary's habits after working on, their circuit over time. There's some days where they want, all big races, they want allowances and nice maiden special weights. And, the big cards you see, for instance, on Louisiana Derby Day coming up, there's no claiming races on those cards, so, but there were claiming races in the condition book for that day, so just kind of having an idea, okay, that's not going to happen, know what's going to be in there, but, that's not something I really need to hustle immediately. Let me take care of these other races first and then go to those later.
Yeah, I see. I understand now. So they see, I would think that, me personally, I didn't know till now that they overbook like airplanes.
Oh, no, there's days where there's 40 options and there's only going to be 9 races carded. So you just kind of deciphering what's going to happen and, seeing a race that might fit a horse here. And yeah, sure, we'd be like the 4th choice in here, but there's a race in 2 weeks that if we wait for, that race is going to go because, I know that the horses are there and ready for it. And we got a shot to being a favorite in a race like that. So, just certain things like that.
Is that like your primary factor in determining when you want to enter a horse, is exactly how far up the morning line odds are you going to be? Or do you kind of assess that and then put your own odds onto it and not really care what the morning line makers do?
Well, in very few barns do I have like the deciding factor of whether or not we're going to enter the horse. In most cases, I'm just like, asking, are you going in this race with this horse? If so, can I ride it with this rider? There are a couple barns that, I do help on the management end of it. And, then I'll, pull across the race, and not necessarily who I think is the morning line odd maker is going to make the favorite, but who I think the betting public overall is going to make the favorite. I mean, you want to ride the favorite, unless you have a big hunch on a horse that, you really think they're going to step up and, you believe in this horse and they're working well, then, you'll go with that. But most of the time, yes, I'm trying to ride who I believe is going to go off as the favorite.
Indeed. One of everybody's favorites is our good friend over here, Sean. How are you tonight? It's been a while since we worked together, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Always good to work with you, Rich. Jose, so like Rich said, you're like the super jockey agent. So how many people do you represent right now, and who are they all?
Currently 9. It is Raylu Gutierrez, David Cabrera, Adam Beschizza, Emmanuel Esquivel, Freddie Manrique, Rene Diaz, Leandro Goncalves, and Eric Fuentes.
And is that like has the max you want, or how many are you looking to have?
No, I've had more than that. I've been up to 10, and I'd definitely be looking to spread out. It just kind of has to make sense, both rider and I. I'm in the situation I am. I'm not there to work on the backside with the rider every single day. So I can't have a rider who kind of needs babysitting. It's not going to work out for me, for them. The trainers are going to end up upset. So, I'm definitely looking for a certain type of rider.
So that was my next question. What's your daily schedule like, and what's your travel like?
Daily schedule, just wake up in the morning usually, and I generally have entries at some racetrack to handle. So do that, get through the draws. Usually after the draws, I start paying attention to the work tab of what happened that day, while also watching the races going on that day. And then at night, I just chart races generally. And travel schedule, usually traveling about once a week, going to one of the different tracks. I live in Dallas, Texas myself, but I spend most of my time in Kentucky work-wise, or, the fairgrounds in the wintertime, or Oaklawn the summer, or the spring, like I said, Kentucky a lot, Indiana, because that's close and I represent riders in Indiana, and then living in Dallas, Lone Star Park.
Mm-hmm. So are you one of those jockey agents that you're at the track all day long and then you kind of go home for the races and watch them at home, or do you stay at the track for the races too?
No, I really don't go out to the track in the morning that often. Just every once in a while. That's why I said, it kind of takes, I can't really have a rider. I need a babysitter, make sure they're going to be there, waiting around or following them, make sure they get to the barn in time. I do a lot of my stuff on the phone.
Nice. Now you started this stuff, and it's going to be hard to believe, but you started at 16 years old at Calder Racetrack. So you talk about now babysitting people and so forth. But when you're 16 and you're going up to an owner probably in his 40s or 50s, a jockey who's probably in his 20s and doing pretty well and thinking that they're 10 feet tall and bulletproof. Here comes a high school kid. Hey man, I want to represent you. So tell me, how did those conversations work?
Yeah, well, I got my start off at Calder, which I grew up at Calder. My dad, of course, rode in New York and only rode Gulfstream in the winter, but my father ended his career in 2007. So the rest of that time I was at Calder all the time because I grew up in Miami. So the trainers and jockeys and owners and all that, they've known me since I was a child. My dad, when he came to America, he started off at Calder. My mother, she came to America because of Calder. My grandfather got a contract to ride at Calder when he left Panama on her side. So Calder's always been home. I've known everybody there my whole life. Most of them have moved on now to Gulfstream. And, every time I get to go back over there, it's like going home and seeing everybody again. But it was cool. I represented a rider named Eddie Dominguez, who currently, I believe, is at Mahoning Valley. And, he was just kind of getting started at the time. And I wanted to be a jockey's agent. And, everyone knew me from the track. So, he gave me my first opportunity, and I'm super appreciative of it.
And then it just grew from there. Now, in the videos I've seen of you, you're sitting at your desk. Probably got a desk full of phones, but you got a notebook that's probably thicker than what the New York phone book used to look like when they had.
Yeah, I've moved on from the notebook.
Oh, you have?
I've moved on from the notebook. Yeah, I'm on an iPad now, and it's been a lot better. Yeah, I moved on from the notebook. I have a complex with. I have a very hard time of remembering things if I don't write them down. Mm-hmm. It's just the way I've always been. It's just the way I learn. If I write it down, it's in my brain forever. So that's why I did the notebook, because the Apple pencils weren't really that caught up. It moved too slow. You'd write it down. It was like 3-second lag. But now the way that it works with the iPad and the Apple Pencil, the way they've enhanced it, it's a lot easier to do now. So now I'm on an iPad. And, I have a couple people who work with me, helping me chart races. And, I can send them documents and they can send them back to me, which is extremely helpful. It was impossible with the notebook.
And now, do you still use color coding?
Excuse me?
Do you still use color coding? Because in the notebook, you had like a rainbow. You had a bunch of different colors that meant different things.
It's so extremely color coded. Yes.
So if someone sees your notebook, what do the colors mean? Like blue is for what?
Blue is usually blue is one rider, green's another rider. I usually go with purple for a barn that I'm managing. If there's a second barn I'm managing on that circuit, that's generally an orange. Red will be a horse that I rode last time, and then I'll highlight it in the color of the jockey that it was ridden by, based off whether or not, I want to ride it back. Then brown will be horses that were just recently claimed. And then it'll kind of change, I'll add some other colors just based off, like, for instance, if there's a top trainer who I don't ride for, but I want to track their horses, I'll write them in teal.
So like if Steve
I'm never going to ask for that horse, but like I know that that's going to be a live horse for a top barn I don't ride for. So I want to know that they're going to be in that race. So
like if you see like a Steve Asmussen or something in
Correct.
there, it'll be
generally is Steve Asmussen, which is why I went teal, because I already had blue for my riders. So I was like, I want to denote that it's him. So it was blue. And then now I've just kind of carried it on to other tracks as well.
So our good friend Willie Martinez, the Brazilian back Willie Martinez, is my man, Mighty Joe. He's taking the game to a whole new level. Was made for this. I'm so proud of you. Keep it going. Much love always from the incomparable Willie Martinez.
I've known Willie since I was a child. He used to watch me when we'd go to Kentucky around Derby time, and Willie's a really close family friend, and I love Willie. Chili Willie.
Let me tell you something about Chili Willie. I was down at Gulfstream with Chili Willie and his wife Jamie Martinez, and a wonderful family. The Parboos, what he won the Breeders' Cup race on Parboos. Yep. Great family as well. But man, you couldn't walk from here to there without somebody coming up to Willie. Like, hey, Willie, Willie, hey. I mean,
Willie's the greatest.
Willie's a rock star in the horse racing world.
I spent a summer with one of my sister's godfathers in Presque Isle, and Willie was there. So we got to hang out a lot that summer as well. I think that was 2009.
Yeah. Kind of reminded me like of a mafia movie. You ever seen the mafia movies and they always go to like the Don and they kiss his ring? Like every young jockey came up to Willie, like, hey, Willie, hey, Willie. Like they had to get his approval. It was a really cool thing to see that, a veteran's getting that kind of respect from the younger people in the game. It was a great thing. So one of the things about the game that I read, you're trying to change the game a bit by becoming perhaps an agent, where you're going to have other agents. And I know a guy sitting right above me there who wants to be a jockey's agent that you might think about consider adding to your barn. He lives out in the North Atlantic by Parks, by Delaware. Maybe you guys can hook up and you can start your agency.
Yeah, that is the way when I first started this, that is the way I wanted to tailor it. I will do that. Willie. Absolutely. I got to drive from Texas to Saratoga this summer, so I will do that. That's for sure. But the issue I see with it as I've grown, is that I feel like trainers would get confused on who they have to contact if it's like an umbrella under an agency. So how I've changed that idea was how I told you, like I have people who help me with charting.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say generally that takes about 10 hours a month of their time, and, it's not very easy to do this, and I understand it should be a high paying job. So would I pay them for that 10 hours a month? Generally like 10 to 12 hours a month is what I've been told it takes them. It's a $500 flat rate. And then 1% of the rider, 1% of my, 1% of the 25%. So I'll make 24%. They'll get 1% of the 25% that the jockey agent makes. And usually it ends up to where they make like somewhere around $1,200 a month. Working
for
10
hours work, that ain't bad.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. But, of course, they're extremely instrumental in helping me do what I do. So, but that's kind of the way I've changed it, because I feel like, having to figure out who you need to reach out to might aggravate people, and then they might just not reach out at all. So, I'm the one that you speak to altogether, and then, I have the people in the background helping me out.
So when you say charting races, explain that. So maybe somebody who's watching that might want to reach out to you, that's willing to do it for maybe $1,100. No, just kidding. Yeah. What is it? What is it they do?
Just kind of going through the charts every day and finding the next spot for whatever horses that, and I give them a guideline. Okay. Keep track of these trainers, certain horses. If it's a horse that you don't necessarily see winning down the line, I don't really need to know about it. I'll find them going through the work tabs, but, just keep track of, what horses are going into the following race after their race. And then I always go through the work tab myself at each racetrack every day. So it's a system that I've found to work for me, and I think I'll keep it that way until I find something better. We're always looking to improve.
Yeah, I can imagine. Right. Do you do any like a data analysis, that sort of stuff to kind of drum stuff up, or are you kind of still, like basketball, for example, they changed the game by figuring out, the average points per shot, and Curry and all those guys starting jacking up threes instead of Shaq to the post, that sort of stuff. You ever thought about introducing that?
I haven't done like actual data analysis, more just like paying attention to what we're doing and seeing, okay, this isn't working. This is working. Let's do more of this way. Mm-hmm. But it's not a bad idea. Definitely something I probably should look into.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, maybe Sean could help you with that.
So how many phones do you have, and how often are you? Just one
phone. It just goes off a lot.
I was gonna say, how many times a day do you charge that phone?
it stays charged. I of course charge it in the night, and then when I wake up, by the time I usually wake up about like 6:30, I would say by 1 it's dead. So by 1 I have to have it on a charger again. Usually, especially like Saturdays, for instance, I have 5 different tracks entering in one day. So that's usually upward of like 50, 60 phone calls and a whole bunch of text messages in between, racing offices getting rundowns and, speaking with trainers, other agents, speaking with my riders, trying to figure out how the works went this day, letting them know what the schedule is going to be tomorrow, talking about the races that are coming up this day. So.
And you're watching all the races?
Thursday, yeah, just watch all the races. I have a schedule written out for me of, what time my races are going off. Also races that I've denoted that I want to watch that I'm not involved in because they could be important down the line. And then I just put a bunch of alarms the night before. And then when post time comes, whether I'm on the road, just pop it up on my phone, or if I'm sitting at home, got TVG or RTN on. And
I know you bet on races too. And I always found it ridiculous. As soon as you don't bet on your jockey, people think something's up.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I haven't bet on horses in a while.
Really?
It's been like a month and a half, 2 months. Honestly, the more riders I get, I'm just involved in most of the races, so there's no real thrill in it.
Right.
Like Breeders' Cup Day, I'll always bet Breeders' Cup Day because you're kind of crazy not to. If you think something about horse racing, or Derby days or something on the big days, absolutely. But
yeah, absolutely have to bet absolutely have to bet those big money pool days if you're going to.
Yeah, you got to. If you think you know what you're doing in horse racing and you're not betting those pool days, you're missing out on an opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing a lot of horse players overlook is actually the size of the money pool and how influential that is and how much you win, because you can't win more than is in the pool, no matter what the odds of the horses are.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing. So do you ever feel like that you were, aside from your family, that you were destined to be in this business? Because let's talk about your birthday and how, when you were born, that corresponded with the opening day at Saratoga when your family was up there, man. If there's anybody who's meant to be in horse racing, your family, your birthday, and then when you were like 5, I mean, you could have probably not even been out of the hospital for 10 minutes. You're in a winner's circle photo.
Yeah,
what do you think about all that?
I was 6 days old. My first winner's circle photo was unaccounted for winning the Jim Dandy, and the following week was Colonial Affair winning the Whitney. So I was that good luck baby for my dad, you know. I showed up and he started winning all these big races. But no, I mean, I can't imagine doing anything else, honestly. Both being interested in it and actually being good at it. I mean, this is what I'm good at. I don't really think I'm that good at anything else. So this is what I'm here for, and I'm fully committed to it, and it's my life, and I'm going to do it until my last day.
Well, you know, that's what they always say, right? The saying is, if you do what you love, you never do a day's work in your life, which is
right.
The aspiration hopefully everybody can achieve at some point in their life. Now, we're usually good luck babies too, because when folks come on our show, more often than not, right afterwards, they have a good string of wins. So when you have a good string of wins, remember Sean and I.
Yeah, well, you know, we got a big weekend coming up. Raylou's riding in 4 stakes at the fairgrounds on Saturday and 3 on Sunday. Adam is over at Turfway riding in 3 stakes on Saturday. Leandro's riding 5 stakes over at Houston on Saturday, 4 stakes at Sunland on Sunday, and then he's going to Will Rogers to ride the stakes Monday and Tuesday. And David rides a really live horse in the stake at Oaklawn on Saturday as well. So
1% is perfect for us.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Well, we can maybe help you with the data for 1%. I'd be more than glad to help you out with that. I do a lot of Excel work, and my son is kind of an Excel genius. So if there's any stuff we can do with that. Speaking of David, I have to say, and maybe you can give us a little bit more background on this, but I got a feeling when he's done with horse racing, he's got a job as like an inspirational speaker type. I mean, I've never come across a dude that no matter what is happening, he's smiling and happy. Is he that way 24/7, 365?
That is David. David is a really, really, really good human being. I got so lucky. And, you know, I was at a pretty crazy crossroad. I was not doing any good as an agent. I hadn't had a rider to represent in like 4 months. And my mom, you know, she was taking care of me, and she was like, look, it's just not feasibly responsible for me to do this anymore. And, you know, you're going to have to come home back to Florida, and, you know, I'm going to get you a job over at Gulfstream working on the TV. And I really had no argument to it. You know, I tried the agent thing a couple years in Kentucky and it just wasn't working. And I was about a month to moving back home, and I get a phone call from a guy named David Cabrera, who I'd never heard of before because I wasn't watching A Remington. And he says, you know, I want to go to Oaklawn, and, you know, Richard Aramia told me to call you, and he says you're a really good agent and we'd work well together. And I was like, yeah, you know, I kind of got plans to go home, but let me think about it. So the only guy I knew in Oklahoma was J.R. Caldwell at the time. We'd had success in Kentucky when he came over. He was using one of my riders, and I called JR. I was like, you know, I don't know who David Cabrera is, but he just called me and he asked me to be his agent. He said, hang up the phone right now, call him back and tell him you're going to be his agent. So I was like, all right. I did it, hung up, called him, and then called my mom the next morning and said, I'm not going to Oaklawn, and, you know, I'm going to represent David Cabrera. And she was really, really mad at me. And I showed up to Oaklawn. When opening day happened, I had like $52 to my name. And at the end of that week, he'd made probably like 25,000 in purses for himself. And I was like, I don't know what's happening right now. And ever since then, we've been rolling. You know, I've worked with David since then, and he's a really, really, really great human being. And he could do whatever he wanted, you know, but he's got a crazy love for animals, and especially horses. And he's going to work in horses his whole life, whether it, you know, clearly not as a jockey his whole life, but he'll always be involved with horses. And whoever gets to work with him is extremely lucky, because he's not only a person, but, you know, just very genuine and honest.
I feel like he should
crazy
take over for Tony Robbins when he's done.
Yeah, no, he really is. He's anyone who gets to have David in their life is extremely lucky. He's one of my favorite people. He means a lot to me. That's for sure.
What's crazy about that is we had Raylu on, and Raylu was at a crossroads, and you kind of ghosted him the first time, and then you gave him a call. So it's always funny how certain people come to certain people and just redirect their career and all successful.
Yeah, Raylu and I, we had an interesting, like you said, he reached out to me when he was an apprentice, and that was kind of that same time when I told you I wasn't going to be an agent anymore. So I was, I read it and I brushed it off. I was really upset with how things were going because some unfortunate things happen, and that's just part of life. And then I tried like multiple times to get Raylu, and it kind of just never worked out. And then it was just at a time where he really needed to do something different. And I mean, it shows now. I mean, you see how extremely talented Raylu is. I mean, he's extremely, extremely gifted, extremely intelligent, and he is very fit, and he works extremely hard at his craft. And he works as hard as I've seen anybody work at being a jockey. I mean, he's truly, truly dedicated to it, and it shows. I mean, he's improved massively, leaps and bounds, and I don't see that ending. I think he's only going to continue to get better. But just it worked out. I needed a rider in Texas, and he needed somewhere to go. And I explained to him, I know Texas isn't going to be your dream, but it's a stepping stone. There's a lot of really, really good trainers here who have connections to places that you want to go. Places like Kentucky, and it's exactly how it's panned out.
So your mom was mad at you then. I'm sure that's changed. I've seen some videos with you were being interviewed and your mom was there. I think it was backside. Oh, God, I can't remember. Life on the backside or
that
whatever.
was last summer at Saratoga. Yeah, she came and visited me. I went up to say, in the summertime, most of the trainers who I do business with are at Saratoga. And while I didn't have a rider at Saratoga, I felt like it was beneficial for me to be there because I'm seeing them there. That's where everything's happening at the time. So I went up there for the summer, and she came and visited me for a week. And it was a really good time.
She seemed very proud of you at that moment. So she's no longer mad at you. But
no, she's not mad at me anymore.
Since she didn't get you that job on TV down there at Gulfstream Park, there's a crew of people here at horse racing today that wouldn't mind having that job at horse racing at Gulfstream Park. So maybe she could put in a good word for us.
That's right. Yeah, she's got the hookup. She knows somebody everywhere. So she's always, I could call her about anything. She's like, yeah, I think I know somebody for that.
All right. Well, put in a good call to your mom when we're the good luck babies for you for the next couple of weeks and say, I know these cats over at horse racing today. They all would like to do something where they actually make money doing
That's
it.
Right.
It would be wonderful. Right. It'd be a wonderful change. I know we get Twitter people. We're shills for the business because we get paid by the business. Twitter. Yeah. We wish we got paid by the business in any case. We're like where you were, $52 in our pocket. So we're waiting for David Cabrera to call us.
That's right.
Well, David Cabrera did call us. He's been on the show twice.
That's right. No, I remember when David was on the show. Yeah, last year. That was a lot of fun to listen to.
He's just not making us any money yet.
No, I got you.
And Tyler Gaffleone hasn't paid me yet for not betting on him yet either. I'm kind of angry about that, but I'm sure his newlywed has something to do with that. Anyway.
That's funny.
All right, Sean. Any more questions from you, Sean?
So my last question is, what do you do when you have time, which I don't know how you have time, but what do you do outside of horse racing?
I'm learning how to golf. Jake Romans is teaching me, Dale Roman's son, and a couple of our friends. I went golfing the other day for the first time.
You're going to do it again?
Maybe that. Yeah, I'll probably do it again. It's like all my friends are doing it, and like they just kind of like leave me alone at home while I'm working on the computer. And like I do like to take a break where I like put down the computer. I generally am just watching races at the time, but like they explained to me, and they're right. Like I could pull up the race on my phone and watch the race. Like I don't have to be sitting at my house to do that. So I should get out of the house more. And that I also go to the gym. So that's the other thing, but that's about it.
I know a lot of those jockeys that went to the Puerto Rican school because we had Jose Ortiz on and he talked about how they go play golf and stuff like that together. So maybe you can get some new people to represent on the golf course. You can, maybe you're going to get like 50 strokes.
Right?
Yeah.
Give
me 50 strokes.
Yeah.
If I beat you, then you got to come and join me. If I don't beat you, I'll never call you again. Pretty easy, right?
I think we usually have like a symbiotic relationship. I like to find riders to where we're helping each other.
Indeed, for sure.
Well, that's another question I have, and I'll end with that is, you said about some barns you ride for, some barns. What makes that relationship? Barns that you do ride for all the time, and then barns that, no, I'm not riding for that barn or that barn.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to ride for everybody, but it's impossible. You know, some people, like, for instance, we brought up Steve Asmussen, for instance. There's situations where I do ride horses for Steve Asmussen, but he generally has a barn rider. And, you know, it's generally an agent who he's worked with for a long time. And, you know, they've got a good thing going. Why change it? You know, he's so successful, it'd be, you know, crazy to change it out of nowhere, really. But you know, it's not like I don't do business with him at all, you know. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I'm always trying to ride for everybody. There's no one I don't want to ride for. It's just, you know, sometimes the same way, like, there's barns that I, you know, manage and they go through my riders, and if I can't ride them, you know, I'll try to help them find a rider. It's the same with other agents and trainers. So that's generally what I mean by that. And, you know, usually in that situation, it's a trainer who's extremely successful. So that's why, you know, I try to keep track of what they got going on, because I might think I have a super live horse in there, but they're going to be 1 to 5 in that race. And, you know, we might be able to find a better spot.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, I do appreciate you coming on tonight, Jose. Looking forward to hearing from your mother and us having a job at Gulfstream Park going forward.
I'll make sure she calls you.
Looking forward to our 1% over the next couple of weeks, and certainly looking forward to talking to you again. Thanks for joining us, and have a fantastic night.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks,
too.
Jose.
Well, Sean, I'm not out of practice with the big head Sean. There you are. Always fun to bring someone new to the show with a different perspective and to learn a whole lot. I didn't know about all the horses, that there was like 40 races potentially for one day, and it got boiled down to 9 or 8.
You know, I figured there was, I didn't know that, but I always wondered, how did they know to put this kind of race and get enough runners? Like, you know what I mean? You don't get 2 or 3 races. Well, that's how, because, you know, if they get 2 or 3 horses, they just throw that up. So,
right.
Yeah,
the ones that fill up stick, and the ones that don't go. Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense, because I actually just wondered this question yesterday or the day before. Like, how do they always know that they're going to get 8 horses in a $5,000 claimer at parks on a Tuesday? Or how do they know they're going to have enough people that fit this condition? But that's how.
So, Danielle, are you asking us, or are you asking Jose if you can work with him? And what would you want to work together on? That would probably be the optimum answer that we would want to look for. All right, Sean. So that wraps up Horse Center for this week. Next week, who do you got planned with the return of Jamie's coming back next week, right?
Jamie is coming back tomorrow. Yeah, her travel is over. So
so they're still in Brazil or South America
I don't know.
somewhere. I thought
I don't know. I think they're home, but she'll be here next week. Monday we have jockey Sammy Camacho on. He's winning at a ridiculous rate at Tampa and always has won at a high percentage. Tuesday, I can't announce it yet because it's in pencil, not pen, so I'm not announcing it yet. And then Wednesday we got jockey Manny Jimenez on, another rider at Tampa Bay, a young rider that's starting to win a lot. So another guy.
I think Manny was the one that we went in the winner's circle photo with when we were down there at Tampa Bay Downs. I'm pretty sure that's who won that race. Yeah. Indeed. And I'm still working on that video. I apologize, folks. I told Sean yesterday, I'm sorry. I've been trying to do 5,000 things at once, getting new data points together to help us with handicapping. We introduced the comfort zone. Got a couple comfort zone winners today, a couple at nice prices. If you want to check that out tomorrow, Charles and I will be back at probably around 12:30 Eastern, about 20 minutes before post time for race 1 at Gulfstream Park. Friday, Tom and I will get together for the Dubai World Cup. So a lot of really big, important races there. A lot of folks here will pay attention to. And on Saturday, we're going to roll out something new, Terry, Charles, and myself, where we're going to look at the biggest carryover for Saturday. And we're going to try to put together a winning ticket for that. Old-fashioned hot dog style, a prime rib style, and then we're going to hack one out together, Sean. So we see if maybe we can win some of these large pick 5s, pick 4s, and pick 6 rollovers going forward on Saturdays.
Do we know which one Saturday? Are there any going into Saturday yet, or we're still waiting to see?
Yeah, probably looking at it that Friday night after all the racing is over to know where the biggest one is. It'll be tough to say because what's available today might cash out by then.
Yeah, yep.
So we'll know, and we'll announce that on all of our social sites. Sorry, folks, out of practice here because I'm usually doing the morning show, but there you go. That's where you will find what races we're going to do, the series of guests that we'll have. And, of course, any content that we put out will be found right there on our social sites. Horse Race number 2 day, Horse Race 2 day. Sean does a phenomenal job on the social media side. So if anybody out there is looking for a social media like manager that works remotely, there you go. The guy in orange, not me. And then outside of that, Sean, make sure you hit the subscribe button while you're on YouTube. We'd like to get to 10,000 people this year subscribe. So if you haven't, please do so. And if you know friends who would enjoy this sort of content, let them know about it as well.
Absolutely.
Any final thoughts before we roll up and out of here?
Nice to have you back and work with you a little bit. Always, you know, we don't work with each other nearly enough anymore. So always nice to see you back.
Indeed, as well. Always good to spend some time with you, Sean. Always good to spend time with the folks who come to this community. We appreciate it 1,000%. Say thank you for that. And of course, we hope that no matter what you do for the rest of this evening, I know what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be working on the wagering guide for the Louisiana Derby. 8 stakes races. I've got
15
about
total.
15 stake races or just 15?
No,
races?
8 no, I'm not scared yet. 8 stake races, but there's 15 total races on the card, which is just a crazy number anymore.
Yeah, and I was just about to have that feeling like I blew by a cop at 90 miles an hour in a 40-mile-an-hour zone. Like, oh, what did I miss?
No. That's why I said I didn't want to give you a heart attack or nothing, but yeah, 15 race card. But yeah, 8 stakes that you really got to dive into.
Yes, and I'll be diving into them. That'll all be available over at Guaranteed Tip Sheet. We'll let you know when that's available on our social sites. Till then, Sean, no matter what you do for the rest of this hump day, for the rest of the week, until we catch up again, we hope everything that you do ends up in
the winner circle.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us. Everybody have a fantastic evening. We'll see you shortly. Got to press the right button now.